Alright folks, now we're going to learn a little bit about conditionals in CircuitPython. And the conditions that we're going to work with is we're going to say, hey, if something is true, then go ahead and do this. So we're going to say, hey, if this condition happens, then do it. Because sometimes, we don't want to have a single action repeat over and over again. We only want to repeat an action if we've got a certain condition which is true. We'll learn about if, then we'll learn about this thing elif, where you can put in some alternatives, and we'll also learn about the else command as well. And we'll finish up with some compound conditionals, the and value and the and the or, which allow us to put together two conditions that we're looking at. So if one thing is true and another thing is true, or if one thing is true or another thing is true, we'll look at those differences in just a bit. But first, let's start off with the if here, and we're going to write a little bit of code in here. So we're going to take our acceleration code here, and if you take a look at your CPX right in the middle, it's kind of hard to see. You may have to magnify it using your phone, but the x value is what goes left to right. So it'll turn negative if we start to tilt our CPX depending on the orientation, but if you keep the orientation where the USB plug is away from you, it should, when you tilt it to the left, I believe it is, we should get a negative value in there. And so by typing in this code here, what we're doing is we're saying, notice when we did while true, we did a colon in here, and this is going to execute this over and over again, all the stuff which is inside of the colon. Well, what we're going to get first is we're going to get our CPX acceleration values, and then what we're going to do down here is we're going to say if x, which is our first value here, that's the left and right value, is less than negative 3.0. So again, normally it's around 0 when it's flat. So this should mean that we're tilting it to the left. And so if this is true, that we've tilted it kind of extremely to the left, or maybe at a 30-degree angle, then what we want to do is we want to do cpx.playTone. Now, playTone is actually another CPX function. So we say again, this dot notation here, and playTone accepts first a frequency value, and then this is how long you want to play that frequency in seconds. And then down here we do our CPX pixels fill, and we're going to show everything in red. And notice again, we've got the tuple in here. Now you might be saying, well, a couple of things. How do we find out more about playTone and really what it does? Well, if you go back over to our API reference, so I have that up on the web right now, and you scroll down here. Again, it's organized in alphabetical order. If you want to learn more about playTone, whoops, I scrolled past it. Here is playTone right here, and again, it says frequency and duration. The frequency is in hertz. Now, if you're like me, that doesn't mean anything to you, and you might want to know, what about the musical notes that I'm playing? What are the frequencies of those? Well, you can just go ahead and Google, and you can say frequency for musical notes in in hertz here, in Hz for hertz. That's the abbreviation for hertz. And again, I'm not a musical person, and I'm not a sound engineer, but the first thing that you see up here says frequencies for musical notes. If you click on this, you can go ahead and see, and I believe, pardon me if I'm wrong here, but I think that middle C is this C4. So if you want to do a middle C here, if you just want to do, instead of 255 as I'd listed, if you want to do 261.63, I'll just copy that. That's the one that we'll go ahead and use. So great. Now let's go ahead and type this in and see this in action and see how our if statement works. So let's go over to CircuitPython. This is actually my code. It's still executing, so I'm going to do a Command C to stop it, or a Control C, I should say, Control C, and then I'm going to hide my serial monitor. I'm going to hide my plotter, and here is my CircuitPython code. And I didn't save this from the last time when I was doing accelerometer code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a line right in the beginning with a hashtag for a comment in here so that I know the code that I'm looking at here, and I'll do CPX plotting with mu accelerometer code. And now what I'm going to do is I'm double clicking on where it says code.py, and I'm going to save this to, and my desktop is where I have my CPX exercise folder, and I'm just going to call this one plotting with mu accelerometer, and press enter in there. So just I've got a backup of it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab these two. First, actually, I can grab my while true as well. I need all three of these lines in here. So I'm going to do a Command C to copy them, or Control C if you're in Windows. Then I've already got a new up, but if you don't, just click on new to do a new untitled tab in here. And once you've copied those, then you can get rid of your plotting with mu accelerometer. And then in untitled, what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste in. So I have these three lines in here. And then I'm going to type in exactly what I had before, which is after the while loop, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get accelerometer values, which are x, y, z equals cpx dot accelerometer, or no, it's acceleration and press enter, and then I'm going to say if x is less than negative 3.0 colon, and then now watch when I press enter I get another indent in here, and this says if this is true then do everything which is indented underneath. So if I say cpx.play underscore tone, and then I open parentheses here, and I had 255 listed on the slide, but again let's copy this so that we get a true middle C here. So I'm just going to copy these this value here, 261.63, and I'm going to paste that in, so that's my frequency value. And if I want to do it for half a second, I'll say 0.5, press enter, and then what I'll also do is I'll highlight all of my lights in red. And if you want to see if you remember how to do that, just you can do a pause right now and get back in. And hopefully you remembered it's cpx.pixels.fill, open parentheses, and if we want the lights to show up in red, we can say 255, 0, 0, close parenthesis. Now that I've got all this now that I've got all this code written, I am going to double click on Untitled here, and I am going to save this to my CPX. So here's down in my CircuitPy is what shows up here, and I'm going to type in code.py. And now I'm going to go ahead and save code.py, and I've already got a code.py on there, so I'm going to replace what I had before. That's going to go away. And now what we should see, if you're running with your CPX, is if it's flat, I don't get a tone, but if you move it to one side, let's see. So if I hold it this way here, it's beeping quite a bit here. If I tilt it again this way, it should, let's see. This way is where I want to go. So I can see it beeps when I tilt it. It looks like right is my negative value in here. So again, you can see it's beeping. But what I'm not doing in here is I'm not getting rid of the lights that I have showing up. So the question might be, how can I get rid of the lights if I am not have the value which is tilted so that I've got a -3 in here, when again it looks like it's tilted right is what gives me the negative value in here. So let's go ahead and see how we can make that change. And to do this, we're going to use an else condition, because what we've got here is we say, okay, if we have an x value which is less than -3, which means I guess we're tilting to the right, I thought it was tilting to the left, then play the tone, and it'll only play for half a second, so that's why it stops. But we don't do anything where we shut off the pixels from being read. So what we want to do is we want to say, but if this is not true, so if we're in a situation where x is not less than -3, then what we want to do is we want to we want to set our pixels to all blank, or 0, 0, 0. So if we take a look, here's a slide with the code on it that we want to do. This shows us what the else statement is. So we have an if condition right here, which we typed in already. But then look what we've done. We've after we said this is what we want to do if this condition is true. So if x is less than -3.0 is true, inside of the condition you evaluate an if, it's always either true or false. That's it. So we're testing to see if it's true. Then if we want to do something, if this is not true, if it's false, we do else and then colon. And so this way we have an alternative. Because you see, before when we just said while true is we said, okay, when it's true, do this. But we didn't say anything, if it was false. So we continue to play the tone. What we didn't do is we didn't undo the playing of the red value here. But that's why, we didn't show and play tone over and over and over again, only if this condition was true. But what we're doing with the else statement is we're going to say, okay, do this if it's true, else do this if this condition is false. So that's what this statement does right here. And by saying else, cpx.pixels.fill, open, 0, 0, 0, close, this turns off all the lights. And what we'll do is we'll also sleep for 1/10 of a second, just so we don't get crazy flashing of lights in here. So let's hop back over. We're going to try out our else condition. So look, we're still, if I click right at the end here of my cpx.fill with the 255, 0, and 0, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to press enter here. But your else shouldn't be indented. It should be even with the if. So what I'm going to do is if I hold down my shift key and press tab, it's going to bring me back over, or you could just backspace. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say else and then colon, and then when I press enter, it indents me automatically again, and then I type in whatever I want to do if this condition here is false. So again, if it's true, I do this. Otherwise, else I do whatever is indented in here. So I'm going to say, if I want to get rid of all the colors, I say cpx.pixels.fill, open, 0, 0, 0, close. And then that's all I want to do. So I don't want any more statements. So what I'll do is, again, you could either shift tab or you can just press the delete key or the backspace key, depending on what it says on your keyboard here. And then if I want to just add a little bit of a time delay, I can say time.sleep, and if I do 0.1, that'll be a tenth of a second. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save this, and I'm going to see how things look when I go ahead and save. And I'm going to save. Let me double click here to make sure that I'm saving to my CircuitPython board here, and I'm going to type it in as code.py, and I'll say save right here and replace what I've got. And now let's take a look at what we see here. So again, if I lift up, I should really reorient this a little bit. So again, if I tilt it to the right, we can see that the light shows up, but then the light goes away. So this is my if condition where it's true, it's beeping, and the light is red. But if I tilt it back over, then all of a sudden my if condition is not true, so it evaluates what's in the else condition. And again, nothing if I go here, but if I go here again, red light shows, it beeps, and then it goes away. Beeps, and it goes away. So hopefully the else is understandable now. And so what I'd like us to do is to learn about the elif statement. So what elif allows us to do is sometimes you want to test a bunch of different things. So you might say, all right, if this is true, then do what I've indented. And instead of just saying otherwise if it's false, you might say else if this is true, do this. And then the else is just if this isn't true and this isn't true. And you can have as many elif statements as you want here. So here's a little something that we'll do. So this if cpx.button a, what shows up if .button a returns, it either returns a true or a false. It's called a Boolean value. And we saw these again when we were working on make code. And we can verify what this returns if we just go back over to our documentation here. And let's see, button A. We see it returns true when button A is pressed. So here we see a little bit of code here, which is just what we're about to type in. So we're going to check to see if CPX button is A, and then what we'll do is we'll print and we'll have everything light up in red. Otherwise, elif, if the CPX button B is being pressed, then what we're going to do is we're going to have it highlight in blue. Otherwise, if neither of these buttons are pressed, then we'll do the else condition down here. So if this is true, do this. If this is true, button B is pressed to do this. Otherwise, if this isn't true and this isn't true, it'll fall down here to the else condition and it'll blank everything out. So let's go ahead and type this in and see how this would work for us. And again, we're getting lots of different examples in here. So we'll hop over to CircuitPython here, and instead of doing this accelerometer stuff, I'm just going to delete that. You could save it if you wanted to, so just undo and save if you want to see your if and then your elif. But again, we've got all of these on the slide, so it's not that big of a deal. But I can say if, and I can say cpx.button_a:. So if that's true, meaning the button A was pressed, if it's true, what we'll do is we'll show the CPX in red. So I'll say cpx.pixels.fill, open, 255, 0, 0, close. And then what I'm going to do is, again, if I just backspace or delete to go back, so I'm indented even or flush with the if statement. If I do elif here and then space, what's the condition that we want to check here? Well, we'll do cpx.button_b. So what we're doing essentially is we're saying, okay, if A is true, do this, and then I'm done with the whole statement. Else, if this is true, then do whatever we have indented under here. So what I can do is cpx.pixels.fill, open, and if we want to do blue, we do 0, 0, 255, close. And then what I can do is I can say, hey, if I don't have button A pressed or button B pressed, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, I've got a third condition in here where I can say else, and then press enter here, and what this is going to do is it indents me, and this is my final condition that I've got here. If this is not true and this is not true, I fall all the way down here, and I can just set everything equal to nothing. So I can turn off all the pixels on my CPX by saying 0, 0, 0, and then close. By the way, if you ever find your code isn't executing, I showed in class that we've got this check button up here. I'm getting an error here too, which says time was imported but not used. It's actually just a warning. It's not going to crash my code or anything. But if I did something like if I forgot a parenthesis in here and I clicked on check, I see that I've got some errors that are showing up right here. So that sort of reminds me to take a look at the code and see, is there something squirrely going on there? And then when I type it in and I do a check again, I can see my errors have gone away. But let's go ahead. What I'm going to do now is I am going to go ahead and save this. So I'll just double click on code.py, and I'm going to save that to my CircuitPython here, or my CPX, which is called CircuitPy. I'll say to code.py. And what I'll do as soon as I click on save, see how things are going to look here when I go ahead and replace this. And then again, I'm going to lift it up, and you know what's weird is it didn't save over and clear out the old stuff that was on my Circuit Playground Express. And if you rewind the video a little bit, you'll see that there was a little star next to code.py. Apparently that's a flag, and again, I'm just sort of learning some things about Mu right now, where things aren't officially saved to your Circuit Playground Express. So what I did was I just went up here and clicked on save, the little star went away, but just to verify here, if I double click on code.py, and I'm going to type in here code.py to save it to Circuit Playground Express. I want to replace that. You can just do click on save again just to verify. Hopefully you don't have a star there. And now what's going to happen is this code should execute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what's going on my Circuit Playground. And if I press on the button A, I see it turns red, and if I press on B, it turns blue. And why is it clearing out? Well, because this is my if condition. This is my elif condition. So if my if condition is true, then I turn everything red. Else, if this condition is true, meaning I press on B, then what I'm doing here, maybe so you can see that a little bit better, I turn things blue. Else, if neither of those things are true, what I do is I just clear out all the values here. So hopefully that makes it clear in terms of how our if and our elif works. And we've just learned about if, elif, and else. And you know what I'll do is I'll save the compound conditionals for another video. Hopefully you're learning a lot, and keep at it.